Close your eyes for a second. Go ahead. Now open them. Something just happened. The light returned. Colors rushed in. Shapes assembled themselves in front of you. And somewhere behind your face, something noticed. Something woke up to the room again. That something, whatever it is the most confounding mystery in the history of human thought. We know your eyes are biological cameras. We know the signals they send are electrochemical pulses traveling at measurable speeds along known pathways. We can trace the whole cascade, neuron by neuron, right into the visual cortex at the back of your skull. And then we hit a wall, because somewhere in that cascade, something starts seeing. Not detecting, seeing. Something experiences the blueness of the sky in a way that no camera ever has and no equation has ever predicted. That is what we are here to talk about. Not just what the brain does, but why doing it feels like anything at all. Why the lights are on. Why there is a you behind your eyes. Physics has cracked the atom. Biology has decoded the genome. But this single question has defeated every brilliant mind that has ever turned toward it. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. Here is where things start getting strange. Your body is made of atoms, roughly 7 octillion of them. That's a 7 followed by 27 zeros. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, the same elements you find in the soil, in the ocean, in the tail of a comet hurtling through empty space. Those atoms follow rules. They obey the laws of physics. They have no opinions, no preferences, no inner lives. A carbon atom in your frontal lobe behaves identically to a carbon atom in a lump of graphite. And yet, when you arrange them into the right configuration, when you stack them into neurons, wire those neurons into circuits, and fold those circuits into a brain, something extraordinary emerges. The atoms start wondering about themselves. I once tried to put this in a single image. You're standing on a beach. The waves crash in. You watch white surf form and collapse, millions of water molecules minding their own business, utterly indifferent to the spectacle they create together. And there you are, watching, made of the same stuff, but aware of it, a pocket of the universe that has become curious about the rest of the universe. How? How does awareness come from atoms that know nothing? That's not a rhetorical question, that's the actual question. And the terrifying thing is, we have no idea how to answer it. Let me show you where the mystery lives, precisely. When you look at a ripe tomato, light with a wavelength of roughly 700 nanometers bounces off it into your eye. Your retina converts that into electrical signals. Those signals race to your visual cortex, where neurons fire in patterns we can measure with scanners. Now here's the problem. That light is not red. It's just electromagnetic radiation, a number on a spectrum. The signals in your optic nerve are not red. They're voltage changes. The neurons firing in your visual cortex are not red. They're cells doing chemistry. So where does the red come from? Who painted it? Philosophers have a word for this: qualia. The felt quality of an experience, the redness of red, the sharpness of pain, the specific warmth of a memory. These are not data points, they are not outputs, they are experiences, and they belong to someone having them. Nothing in our description of the brain mentions qualia. We can describe the wavelength, we can describe the neural firing rate, we can map which brain regions activate. But at no point in that description does the redness show up. It just appears from the inside, uninvited by the physics. This is what philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem of consciousness, and hard is an understatement. Here's the analogy I keep coming back to. Suppose you wanted to understand how a car moves, and I walked you through the whole engine, combustion, pistons, crankshaft, wheels. Every step connects to the next. There are no gaps. You can follow the mechanism from fuel to motion, and the whole thing makes sense. Now try the same thing with the brain. Photon hits retina, signal travels along nerve, neurons fire in visual cortex, and then you experience the color red. That "and then" is the problem. That's the step with no mechanism. That's where we fall off the map. Here's another way to see it. Bats navigate in complete darkness using echolocation. They fire pulses of ultrasonic sound and interpret the returning echoes with astonishing precision, detecting the size, shape, texture, and velocity of a moth from across a room. The philosopher Thomas Nagel asked a simple question: what is it like to be a bat? You might try to imagine it. Close your eyes, picture sending out sound waves and feeling the world echo back. But Nagel says you cannot actually do this. You can only imagine what it would feel like for you to have sonar. You cannot access what it actually feels like from inside a bat. Its specific, private, first-person experience of moving through sound. That is the core of the problem. Science is built on objectivity. We measure from the outside. We quantify, compare, and generalize. But consciousness is stubbornly subjective. It exists only from within, and no amount of external measurement closes that gap. You can't get to the inside by stacking enough outsides. Let me add another layer to this puzzle. Your brain doesn't process experience in one place. The color of an object is handled in one region, its shape in another, its location in another, and its motion in yet another. Different features, different brain regions, often firing milliseconds apart. But when you reach for a red coffee mug, you don't experience a red blob over here and a round shape over there and a near location somewhere else. You experience one mug, unified, immediate, whole. How does that happen? This is the binding problem, and no one has solved it. One popular idea is neural synchrony, when neurons in different parts of the brain fire in rhythm around 40 times per second. Maybe that shared timing is the brain saying, these things belong together. There's real evidence that this synchrony exists, but synchrony doesn't explain experience. It tells us when things fire. It says nothing about why synchronized firing feels like a unified mug. You could have two radios broadcasting on the same frequency without either of them hearing anything. The neurons in my brain are firing right now. The neurons in your brain are firing right now. Some of mine might even be oscillating at the same frequency of some of yours. But my experience stays mine. Yours stays yours. Why? The chemistry doesn't know which skull it's in. Researchers have not given up. A few proposals are worth knowing about, if only to see where they fall short. Some scientists suggest that the electromagnetic field the brain generates might be where consciousness lives. When neurons fire, they produce tiny fluctuations in electrical and magnetic fields that extend through and beyond the brain tissue. These fields are inherently unified in a way that scattered neurons are not. They are everywhere at once, not parceled out across regions. Maybe that integration is what binds experience together. It is an elegant idea, but an electromagnet has a field. A power line has a field. We do not think they have inner lives, so why should the brain's field be different? We still need an account of why any field should feel like anything. Others invoke quantum mechanics. Roger Penrose proposed that quantum processes in tiny protein structures inside neurons, called microtubules, might generate consciousness. Quantum mechanics is famously strange, Particles exist in superpositions. Measurements collapse possibilities into outcomes. Entanglement links distant particles in ways that defy ordinary intuition. Maybe consciousness lives in that strangeness. The problem is that the brain is warm and wet, conditions that destroy the delicate coherence quantum effects require almost instantly. But even setting that aside, quantum mechanics is still physics. It describes how matter behaves. It does not tell us why behaving that way would feel like something. Saying consciousness is quantum does not solve the mystery. It makes it quantum-flavored and then stops at exactly the same wall. Here are two thought experiments that cut right to the heart of the problem. First, the philosophical zombie. Imagine a being physically identical to you in every measurable way. Same neurons, same connections, same firing patterns, same behavior. It says, ouch, when you poke it. It writes poetry about grief. It tells you it loves you. But inside, nothing. No experience. No inner life. Just physics processing in the dark. Is such a being possible? We genuinely do not know. And that uncertainty is the problem. Nothing in our equations rules it out. Nowhere in the laws of physics does it say this arrangement of matter shall have experiences. The jump from description to experience is never explained. Second, the split brain experiment. Surgeons sometimes cut the corpus callosum, the 200 million fiber cable connecting your brain's two hemispheres, to treat severe epilepsy. Afterward, patients seem normal, but careful testing reveals something unsettling. Show an image to the left visual field, processed by the right hemisphere, and ask the patient what they saw. They say nothing, because language lives in the left hemisphere, which genuinely does not know. But ask the patient to draw what they saw with their left hand, controlled by the right hemisphere, and they draw it perfectly. Is this one person with two information streams, or two people sharing one body? The patient's voice, the left hemisphere, insists there is only one self. But what would the right hemisphere say if it could speak? We do not know, and that uncertainty suggests that consciousness might not have the clean boundaries we assume, that the self might be less like a point and more like a process, and a surprisingly divisible one. Here is where I have to be honest with you. This is speculation. This is standing at the frontier and squinting into the dark. Some thinkers, serious ones, propose that we have been asking the question backward. We keep asking, how does the brain produce consciousness? What if consciousness does not need to be produced? What if it is fundamental, not derived from anything simpler, the way mass and charge and space-time are not derived from anything simpler, just there as a basic feature of reality? This does not mean everything is conscious. It means that consciousness might be irreducible, that instead of explaining it away, we need to find the laws that connect it to the physical world, just as Newton found the laws connecting mass to motion. This is not a popular view in physics departments. We love reduction. We love explaining complicated things by pointing to simple components. But after centuries of trying, we have not closed the explanatory gap by 1 inch. At some point, that persistent failure is itself evidence. Maybe some things do not reduce further. Maybe consciousness is where the reduction stops. You might wonder if this is just philosophy, interesting to argue about, but ultimately inconsequential. I want to push back on that. Consciousness is not a peripheral mystery. It's the central one. Everything we know, all of physics, all of chemistry, all of biology, arrives to us through conscious experience. Without consciousness, there is no knowing at all. It's the lens we cannot remove because we are already looking through it. And consciousness is where value lives. Pain hurts. Joy feels good. Grief feels heavy. These are not information states. They are experiences with weight and texture and meaning. A universe of unconscious matter cycling through its physics would be a universe where nothing matters, where nothing is better than anything else. Consciousness is what turns events into experiences, and experiences into things that matter. That means understanding consciousness is not just a scientific problem, it's a moral one. It determines which entities deserve consideration. It shapes how we think about animals, about AI, about the edges of human life. We are making decisions right now about which systems can suffer, which minds deserve protection, without the slightest theoretical foundation for answering those questions. Let me leave you with this. The carbon in your body was forged in the collapsing core of a dying star. The hydrogen has been drifting through the universe since the first 3 minutes after the Big Bang. These ancient, mindless particles assembled themselves into molecules, into cells, into a nervous system, and somehow, somewhere in that long chain of events, the lights came on. The universe became capable of noticing itself. Of all the arrangements matter could take, and there are arrangements beyond counting, one arrangement looks back at the cosmos and asks, why is there something rather than nothing? What am I? How does any of this feel like anything? We are that arrangement, atoms with curiosity, matter with a point of view. We don't know how it happened, not even close, but not knowing is not a defeat, it's an invitation. It means the deepest question in science is still open, still wild, still waiting for the person who will finally see it from a new enough angle to crack it open. Maybe that person is watching this very moment. So here's my question for you. Leave it in the comments. If you had to place your bet, is consciousness something the brain manufactures, like heat from an engine? Or is it something more basic, woven into the fabric of reality itself? Or is there a third option nobody has properly named yet? I genuinely want to know what you think, because this problem will not be solved alone.